What's up, everybody? So today I want to share with you a little more about this famous photo of Brushy Bill Roberts. Now, this photo has been out for decades, and we've all seen it, but I think we need to look at it a little bit differently, and I think there's some very interesting things that have been hiding in plain sight all of these years. Now, you may find it interesting that this photo is not in Mr. Morrison's book, Alias Billy the Kid. Instead, he shows this photo of Brushy Bill, which is a charcoal drawing of the same photo. So you may have heard me talk before. I have actually some charcoal drawings of my own ancestors. And what they are light photographs that are filled in by hand by a charcoal artist. This was considered kind of a premium thing to have done at the time. So as you can see, effectively, it's the same photo, but on the right, the artist has filled in some things, particularly if you look at his mustache, he's given him a little bit of a flourish on the ends of his mustache. So in Alias Billy the Kid, Morrison says that this photo on the right is when Brushy Bill was 27 years old. Now, since Brushy said that he was born on December 31st, 1859, that means that this photo would have needed to be taken between December 31st, 1876 and December 31st, 1877. Now, because of my work on Billy the Kid, the Silver City photo that we did with Emilio Estevez and Tim Montana, I was introduced to some of the best experts in the world. And not all of the information that I received ended up in the documentary. We had to hit a 40-minute timeline for different reasons, and we weren't able to share everything, but at some point I will be releasing the rest of what I learned. And the two people in particular that I'm going to mention today have been advisors and consultants to living history organizations, museums, etc., in the US and abroad. They're curators of historic fabric lines. They own an extensive collection of original garments from 1640 to 1920. They do workshops on this stuff. They do historic fashion programs using original garments. They're weavers, seamstresses, curators, and film industry costumer and background artists. So again, these are folks that were introduced to me by Tim Montana. These are two of the film industry's top people on vintage clothing. And I just want to add to that, they don't care anything about Brushy Bill Roberts. We don't talk about Brushy Bill Roberts. This is strictly professional. When do you think this item of clothing was made? They're not trying to convince you or anybody else about whether or not Brushy Bill was Billy the Kid. So I just want to make that clear. So first, I fire an email to Mark Brown, and I say, Mark, here's a vintage photo. Can you please help me identify when this photo was taken? And Mark responds, late 80s and early 90s is my thought based on the photographic process combined with his manner of dress. But let's have Sharon Brown give you her findings. So then a few days goes by and I get an email from Sharon Brown, and she says, hello, Dan, this is Sharon. I've been able to pin this picture down to between 1887 and 1891 from the cut of the coat and the lapels. There is always the chance that a person is wearing an old style coat because that is all he had, but the earliest for this cut and style would be 1887. I hope this will help you out. If I can be of further assistance, let me know. So 1887 to 1891. And in 1950, Mr. Morrison, who was not a vintage clothing expert and didn't know anything about this stuff, said Brushy Bill Roberts is 27 years old in this photo. When you do the math, that would be 1887. Now, you're going to notice something else in this photo, which is this badge, and I am going to call it a badge, on Brushy Bill's lapel. Brushy Bill said that in the late 1880s, in the 1890s, he was a deputy U.S. Marshal in Oklahoma Indian Territory. It just so happens that if you go on the official website of the U.S. Marshals, you will see that in the 1880s and the 1890s, U.S. Marshals wore coins as badges. They mounted coins and they would carve their own design into the coin, as you can see here in this example. Now, you can't see the image on Brushy's lapel, but you can definitely see that that's a mounted coin. So here's what I can tell you. Based on the best vintage clothing experts in the world, this photo is not Oliver Roberts. How do I know that? Because the latest this photo would have been taken would be 1891. And in 1891, Oliver Pleasant Roberts was 12 years old. Does this guy look 12 years old to you? No, he looks 27 years old, which is exactly how old Brushy said he was when he was doing what he did. So look, we've already shown that in the census record, there's anomalies after Brushy Bill took Oliver Pleasant Roberts' identity. When he's 20 years old, he can't read or write. He and his mom were born in Arkansas. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, he can read and write, and both of his parents are from Kentucky. So the evidence is in favor of Brushy Bill Roberts not being Oliver Pleasant Roberts. And I really don't know how anybody could say that Brushy Bill Roberts was Oliver Roberts when this photo was clearly taken when Oliver Roberts would have been between 8 and 12 years old. So in some sense, this one photo that has been hidden in plain sight all along could be the smoking gun. Thanks for listening.